Hello, welcome to Lucy's Big Beautiful World of Painting. My name is Lucy Aita. Today I'm going to do a limited palette painting, which means I'm using just 3 colors to make a really nice winter scene. And I will be using a great product called W Oil Water Soluble. It's water soluble oil colors by Martin F. Weber. It's toxic free, so it's a little bit safer than using oil colors. It works the same, and it's a great product to try. So today I'll be using these products to show you. I like to try to show you something a little different on every show. So here's my color palette. I have titanium white, I have Mars black, and I have Prussian blue. Now I know what you're saying, you can't tell the difference between that blue and that black. Here's a little trick. I'm going to just take a little bit of the white and put it into the color, and now you can see it's a little bit of gray, so there's my black. I'll do the same thing with the blue, and you can see the difference. That's a little color test we do when we can't tell our colors. Some artists actually like to write the colors on their palettes. This way they can tell the difference, and they don't have to be sticking their fingers in paint like I just did. So already I have put on some Fast Flow White, which is a really nice medium that will help the paint flow better on the canvas. So to start out today, I'm using a scenery brush. It's a nice coarse scenery brush. And I already have the white from the Fast Flow, sorry, which is dripping a little, and just using a little Fast Flow. I'm going to be dipping into my Prussian blue. So I'm going to put down my palette and get ready to paint my sky. Here we go. In a circular motion, I'm putting on this nice bright blue. There we go. When I come down to my palette, I may not lift it up every time. I'm just tapping in a little more paint. And I'm making a little darker in the corner. Both corners a little darker. And just going across in circles. I'm doing circles because there is a tooth in the canvas, and it's like a graining, and this will help the paint go into that tooth and fill in all those little ridges. So it looks a little rough right now, but we will be smoothing it out. So I'm going to come down a little bit past halfway. There we go. And I'm going to blend it out a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of the paint out of my brush. And I'm just pushing it into a paper towel. You can see how much comes out. And this is a really dark, heavily pigmented color, so it really does show out. All right, I'm going to come back and blend. So, since I took the paint off of the brush, I'm blending. When I had paint on the brush, I'm painting. There we go. I'm going to try to get out some of these brush strokes, make it a little smoother. To do that, I can stay in the same spot, probably 10 or 12 times, sometimes more, and that will smooth it out. There we go. And you can hear the brush on the canvas. And you can see if there's any white spots, it's getting filled in by me smoothing it out in this fashion. So, for example, here's a white spot, and I'm just moving the paint. And that fast flow underneath helps the paint move. And of course, with oil paint, it does it on its own, so we don't always use it. However, for certain applications, especially when doing a sky and that we want it really blended, we do put the fast flow underneath. So, there we go. So while I'm blending, I wanted to mention a very nice online magazine called Interactive Artist Magazine. I was lucky enough to be published in it just in April, hoping everybody would take a peek at it. It has hundreds and hundreds of articles and videos and ideas for painting and new painters and experienced painters. It's a great online magazine. I hope you'll come and see me in there. So when you get a chance, maybe you can get on the internet and take a peek at it. There we go. So that looks pretty smooth. I'm going to be putting some mountains, some trees, some clouds, so it doesn't have to be that smooth. But we want a nice sky, such a pretty winter color. So now I'll be changing brushes, and I'm going to be picking up a new brush. This is a brush in my product line called Lucy's Bounce Brush, and it's horsehair. It has 3 layers, and it has indentations, so we can hold our brush with our fingers on the indentation. So I'm putting 2 fingers on the front and just holding my thumb on the back. I'm going to bounce on trees, okay? So I think first though I will put in the mountains. So for that, I'm just going to use a fan brush. I'll set this brush down, and I have a fan brush, which is like a flat brush, but with a rounded top. So for the mountains, I'm just going to load my brush with some blue. I'll move it over here so I can see it a little better. A little black, and I'm going to take up a scoop of white. There we go. I want something a little gray, but gray, say gray, black, but with a tone of blue in it. There we go. Maybe a little more blue. I want to make sure that there's contrast against my sky. So I'm going to put in the mountains first, then go back and do the clouds this time. There we go. So just thinking about what my mountain range may look like. Just going to sketch out a little mountain range. You don't have to draw or anything for this. I can't draw. I can paint a bit, but I can't draw. So just going to sketch out my mountain range. I'll be putting some big trees in there also, and I'm not sure which part of these mountains will be covered with trees, so I'm just going to paint it, not knowing where I'm going to be putting my trees yet. So there we have a little bit of a gray color. I think I want to make it a little bluer. So I'm just dipping in some of my Prussian blue there. And I'm just going to paint some down. There we go. Little mountain range in the middle. And I will highlight the mountain range also. So I'm going to go back to my big scenery brush here, my 1-inch scenery brush. Just going to blend out this bottom a little. Sometimes if we're lucky and we blend out the bottom, it actually looks like some mist. So you can hear it rubbing on the canvas. I'm pushing pretty hard to try to lift up some of that paint and pull it down. And there we go. Pull a little bit down into there, and maybe in between the trees we'll get a little bit of a fog. You can see I'm picking up some of that fast flow underneath. And that's what might help it look a little bit like mist, especially after I put the trees in the front. There we go. Now we'll go back to first using the bounce brush. Sorry, I almost called it a pounce brush. It's a pounce brush. So we're going to be putting some clouds. I'll be putting some clouds. Here we go. What I'm doing is I'm just tapping some of the paint into the first, say, 1/4 inch of the brush. Okay, and this is an easy beginner brush. I'm going to call this a beginner brush because anybody can do this now. I'm using the corner of that brush, and I'm just going a circular fashion and making a cloud formation, just however way I decide to have my brush go. There's no rhyme or reason to this one. Now, while I'm rubbing the paint in, I'm pushing the bottom of the brush, and it's actually blending out the bottom of the cloud. Now usually when we do clouds, we'll put in the white top and take another brush and blend out the bottom. With this brush, you can put in the white and then push your brush down to use the whole brush to blend out the bottom. So you can do clouds with just one brush, which does help a lot of beginners to do their clouds. I'm just bouncing again in some more white, titanium white paint, the thick paint, not the fast flow. And I'll come over and put another cloud. So first I'm going on the corner. I'm picking up a lot of blue in there, so I'll have to come back here and there my palette might be off camera, but I am just tapping in some white. And then I'm just using the whole brush this time. And that's what's helping kind of anchor the cloud to the sky. And some of these will be covered, like I said, with trees, but I will put another just in case they peek through. We will have some peeking through. See, again, I'm using the corner, just that 1/4 inch or so of the brush, and then I'm pushing it down a little bit and using the bottom of the brush. There we go. I'm having so much fun with this, I want to add more clouds. This is a great way to add clouds. There we go. So, looks like I put 4 big clouds in there, so I think I'll come back and squeeze in a 5th, just so we have an uneven number. It always seems to be a little better for the viewer when it's an uneven number of elements in your painting. So there we go. There we go. Now, with these clouds, if you wanted them to be softer and not harsh or vivid, you could take a feather type brush and lift up. And I'm pulling some of that paint up and lifting. I'm not pushing on the brush. I'm just letting the brush slide back and forth. And this softens the clouds. Now, when you use my bounce brush, because of the 3 layers of bristles, you can see, if you can close up here, come a little closer, you can see in this section that it almost looks like there's like holes in the cloud. That's what we want. So it looks a little more natural. Now, you don't necessarily have to use this brush, like I said. It's just if you want to. Depends on how soft you want your painting to look. Okay, so I'm going to put that brush down now. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to pick up a palette knife. Now we're going to put some nice white on those mountains, get some snow on there. So with the palette knife, I'm spreading the paint out very thin. Very, very thin. Okay, I'm going to rub some off. I'm coming across and just scraping up a bead. There we go. And I'm going to come in and just pat and dab. And this is going to be some snow. Now, as I pat more, I'll lift up some of that blue from underneath, and that's great because that will make it look like some shadows. See, if I pat on this side and push some of that white in, it'll look like a little shadow. And that's what's great with this Prussian blue also, is that it just, because of the pigment, it just blends with anything so well, and it'll pick up any other color you put next to it. There we go. Come over here. Pat and dab. Like I said, I'm not sure what's going to be covered with trees, but I'm still doing the painting as if I'm not putting trees on. Coming back again, taking another slice of paint. Maybe come over here and do a nice big portion of white snow. We want this to look very wintry. And I'm just rubbing it in, patting it in. And I think I need a little more white over here. And that would be funny if that's where I built my big tree and I end up covering it, but I still am putting it. Okay, I'm going to come over into my blue-gray mixture I had before. There we go, and do the same thing. I'm going to come over and pat and dab and push this paint around. Some of my mountain underneath will be showing, and now we'll have some of this rough texture on top, which will just make it look a little more dramatic, a little more realistic. There we go. Okay, so here we have some nice mountains. Okay, I'm going to take a fan brush now, and I'm going to put a little white on there. This is a nice soft fan brush, also by Martin F. Weber Company, specifically made for the W Oil product line. And I'm coming into a little blue, whatever I had left on my palette. Maybe I'll add a little black. It might be a little too blue. Here we go. I'm going to come in and just put a little indentation of some trees here. Now, they're not going to show too much, but just to have a little background for when I put my larger trees. Now, I'm going to change that color a little because it doesn't show at all. Now, see what happens? I just add a little more blue, and there we go. Now it shows. So this is just a little bit of an illusion of trees by dabbing with this fan brush straight up and down. Putting it right on top of my mountains, which will make the mountains look like they're further behind. Okay. Whoops. I just dropped my brush. I'll get that in a moment. Now I'm using a filbert brush. The filbert brush is one of my favorite brushes. I'm just going to cut off a little bit here just so I can see my lining. Kind of help me with my perspective, okay? So I'd like to put a little bit of a water feature in here. So just saying that this is a little brook, a little stream, and we want to make it icy. So I'm going to add even more blue, make it look icy. So we'll have a little bit of the stream coming off to the side and a little bit coming off to the other side. And then in here we'll have our land where we'll put our big trees. There we go. A little more blue. I'd love to put the blue in. Now you should be able to see the perspective of the painting, and the mountains and everything should look behind. I'm adding some real dark color up front, which always helps everything in the back, which is lighter, look further away. There we go, and I'm just rubbing back and forth. Not even cleaning the brush, I'm just taking some titanium white and putting some in the water, make it look colder and icier. And I can even come back and put some lining in with the palette knife later on. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is take a flat brush, coming into my white, and I'm using some of my fast flow white along with my titanium white. Just gonna put in a little bit of layer of white down here because I felt that the canvas was a little dry. So I'm adding a little bit more down there just so my paint goes back and forth more smoothly. There we go. Now I'm going to add in some trees, and excuse me, I have to get my brush. I don't even have to clean off the brush. And I'm just going to come into some blue and some black. I'm going to make a dark color using that pile I have there, and going to show you how easy it is to bounce in some trees. So I'm holding my brush, again, 2 fingers. My thumb is resting on the back, and here we go. I think I'll put the tree starting right here. And you can see I'm just bouncing it off the canvas. I'm going to come back for more paint. This will take pretty much paint because pretty soon I'll be going right through that white, and I will pick up some of that white. So this is how I'm starting a nice evergreen tree. This, of course, can be done with any color. If I wanted to do green and another type of painting, I can just do it with green. But you see, what I'm doing is just bouncing the brush. So what's happening is the paint is coming off and sticking to the canvas. Great, this is great for beginners. It's a great way to get realistic looking trees. Much easier than using a fan brush, which we all, of course, got used to using. But this is really, it's a lot of fun. It makes you want to put more trees in your painting. You can also use it for leaves. So I'm going to bring this down into what's going to be some snow. And I may add a little more in the bottom there. Make it a little thicker as we get further down. There we go. So I'm going to do all the trees first, and then I'll go back and we'll put some limbs in those trees. So maybe I'll do a little one right here. I'm going to make it a little darker to make sure it's a darker value than my background mountain. There we go. And I keep going back and forth to the paint. And again to the paint. Just dipping. It's actually mixing the black and the blue right on the canvas for me. And I'm still just using that quarter of the brush. So you saw when we did the clouds, I used the whole brush after I used the top quarter. Now, I'm using just that top quarter again. So there we have another tree. Okay, so I think we'll do one more tree. Again, we want to keep our element numbers uneven. So let's do one about here. And this will be the last tree we'll do. Again, you can see pouncing back and forth, applying that paint very easily. And I still have my fingers on those two, on the top two ridges. There we go. And bounce, bounce, bounce. Bounce, bounce. Okay, and I'll make that one a little higher than the other. There we go. So I'm going to lay this brush down, and I'm going to go back to my palette knife, and I think I'll pull this right back up here, putting a little detail in now. I didn't wipe the brush off. I probably should wipe that, the knife off. I probably should not wipe that off a bit. And I'm going to scrape some limbs into this tree, into all the trees, just to make them a little bit more realistic. Add some nice detail. Can even go back here, add a little detail while I have the knife in my hand. Can add a little detail. Then after, we can go back again and just cover a little bit of those limbs, the branches. This way they look like they're inside the tree and not right on top. Okay? So now we're going to add some snow. Now, there's a couple ways to add snow. I could come in very thick with the palette knife and add snow, or I could just take a fan brush or a flat brush, and add snow. So I'm going to come into my fresh white. I dipped a little bit in my fast flow just to make it a little bit creamier. And here comes the snow. I'm just laying the snow on, which way I think this snow might be laying. And I'm picking up some black, and that's fine. That's great that we even pick up some black, because that's what makes the snow look like snow. Okay, I'm going to get more paint, laying in some thick snow. I want to lay in some thick snow here. Give a little, look at this, a little bulk. Make it look billowy snow. And there, we got some black in there, and that's fine. And maybe my snow goes on a bank this way, so I think I'll head it down. We'll put the snow on a bank. So it looks like those trees are heading right over, sitting right on top of that snow bank. So what I'll do is come back with my bounce brush and just bounce a little on the bottom. Just so those trees look like they're sitting on that snow and that snow is around them. Okay, so back to the palette knife. Switching back and forth a little bit more today. And spreading out some paint, picking up some, and here I go. I'm going to put in some nice snow caps. Snow caps in the water. Coming back again, laying in some snow caps. And what I'd like to do is make some icy, make this look a little icy by rubbing some of the snow, which is my mixture of both white paint, around the area that our trees are sitting on. Looks like a little bit more of a snowbank now. And see, I'm just using the knife and rubbing it in. Gonna turn my hand a little bit there, rub it in a little more. There we go. I think that looks pretty snowy now. Okay, so let's go back and put a little more snow. I think I'll come back up. Put a little bit more, make it a little bit more dramatic. When you look at a painting, the more lights and darks you have, the more dramatic your painting will look. So I'm just coming in and adding a little more snow there. Might even try to peek a little bit in here between the trees. Usually I would of course put the trees on first, but I want to put a little in there, and that's going to help those trees stand out a little more. All right. There we go. So I'm just patting and dabbing again. Maybe I'll put a little more snow on this side. After all, it is a snow scene. Can never have too much snow in a snow scene. There we go. Good. Now, what I can do to start to finish up is can pull a little bit more shadow. This way it looks like this has a little bit of shadow underneath the tree. Not necessary because I have some shadow in the snow, but just to give it a little more detail. So I pulled some of that shadow down, and I'll take my feather brush and just pull it down a little bit more. We don't really have a light source in this painting, so it doesn't really matter which way, but if the light, say, is coming this way, then these shadows pretty much can go any way from the tree. Kind of angle them a little bit. Okay, so there we have it. What I'd like to show you, since I have another minute, is my cleaning bucket, which is a real sturdy bucket, and it has a mesh inside that we can rub our brushes on. So if you come to my page at Lucy's World of Painting, I give a lot of tips on how to clean your brushes. And we do the dip wipe method, which is we just dip our brush in, wipe it on a paper towel, dip again. We repeat that a couple times, and then we swoosh it along the mesh on the bottom. And that'll keep our brushes really nice and firm for a long, long time. And the last thing would be, of course, would be to sign the painting. Okay? So I'm not going to sign it right now. I would wait a couple weeks until the paint sets up a bit, and then I can sign it with a script liner. So that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the painting and watching me do this limited palette painting, again with just 3 different colors. Thanks for tuning in.